Welcome, everyone. I'm really excited to be here with you all today. My name is Emily Abramson, and I'm a licensed art therapist as well as a yoga therapist working and living in New York City. And it's pretty early in the morning here, but I'm excited to do some movement with all of you and start to talk a little bit about yoga, relaxation, and mindfulness. If you were in and available to come to my session a couple weeks or months ago, you learned a little bit about mindfulness, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of those things today, as well as get into some kind of yoga or movement poses that we can all do together. And then if we have time, talk a little bit about yoga stories, which we'll kind of learn and get used to together. And if we don't have enough time today, we'll have time next Wednesday to talk about these yoga stories. So we'll get started today. I'm going to share my screen with all of you. Okay, so starting today, you should all see this yoga and relaxation for children and their parents. We are going to start with a centering activity. So if you're wherever you are right now, just come and find a comfortable seat. If you're on a chair, sitting on the ground, if you're, at a table with your family around you, or if you're by yourself as a caregiver or a parent, just find a comfortable seat. And if it's okay with you, start to just relax your shoulders a little bit. And if it feels comfortable, you can always close your eyes or just gently lower your gaze. We'll just take a couple moments here, taking some nice deep inhales and exhales. Just starting to enter into this space all together. Beginning to just notice maybe the temperature of the room around you. Maybe beginning to notice the seat you're sitting on. Is it hard? Is it soft? Just starting to become more mindful, beginning to notice how your body is feeling. Notice the rise and fall of your breath, and maybe notice the sounds around you, including my voice. Just take a couple more moments here. Just kind of checking in with ourselves, which is a really nice thing to do throughout the day. Oh, I think it lost my video. Hold on, everyone. Sorry. Not sure what happened. So again, finding these times to really check in and notice how you're feeling, especially when things don't go always the way we're thinking they go. And I'm just going to share the video again. Okay, so just let's take one more nice big inhale all together and exhale, let it go. So today in this webinar, we're going to be talking about yoga and relaxation, mindfulness, self-care, different things we can do for ourselves, for our families, when we're at work, if we're caretakers, if we're teachers, if we're social workers, how we can help our little ones and ourselves be more present with what's happening in front of us, and also find some movement that allows us to kind of find more relaxation and also get some of that extra energy out. So what is yoga? There's many different definitions of yoga, but for today, we're going to talk about yoga is the use of movements, breathing techniques, relaxation, and different types of meditation to help you connect back with yourself and your body. Yoga is a safe and proven therapeutic tool used for children and adults of all ages and abilities. And we'll talk about that a little later, that you always want to notice how you're feeling when you're doing a movement or a breathing exercises, or check in with your kiddos and see how they're feeling, because we don't want to ever push anything too much or make anyone feel uncomfortable or in pain or anything like that. So how can it be relaxing? Yoga can be relaxing because it allows us to focus on our bodies and breath. It allows us to come back to our current moment and really feel, how it's going, how we're doing in this moment. We are able to become more mindful when we are practicing yoga and these yoga techniques. So we're able to kind of focus more on the physical body, our mental body, how we're, feeling in this moment and how that feels and how it can be helpful. And through these different combinations that we'll talk about today, different breath work, different types of movement, different things that you can call yoga, can help us regulate our emotions, develop self-esteem, awareness, and build healthy lifestyles. They can create more time for relaxation, which we all desperately need, as however big or small that is. So we talked a little bit about this, but the benefits of yoga, stretching, moving, and relaxation. So they can increase your flexibility and your strength. They can increase your mood and your tolerance to change. So if you're kind of get a little bit more used to moving through an activity, or like today with the slides, getting used to kind of when things don't go and being flexible and being able to kind of roll with the flow a little bit more. Yoga and these types of relaxation and mindful activities can really help with that. Some of the breathing exercises that you have in your handouts, as well as the ones we'll talk about later today, can increase your breath capacity, so it can develop stronger lungs, deeper inhales and exhales, can increase sleep quality, especially if you're doing relaxation or things like that, right before bed. It can increase bone density by doing some of these simple movements here. You can start to develop a stronger muscular and bone structure to your body. We can increase concentration, as we talked about, where we're allowing ourselves to really focus on the moment, focus on what's going on for us, and that allows us to be a little bit more present. And like I said, also it can build confidence, especially for, young children here, when we're working with situations that are a little hard. And once we kind of can find, a benefit in these different postures or in these different breathing activities, you can build your confidence. And as well, on the other side, you can start to decrease your anxiety and your stress, which we all need more of. We can decrease injuries, hopefully, if we stay a little bit more limber and we're able to work on our balance, especially as we age. And also when we're young, hopefully injuries can go down. Can decrease fatigue. That has to do with, the sleep quality hopefully improving. It can decrease blood pressure. So when we get really anxious or worried about something or nervous, our blood pressure can go up and up and up, and it can hopefully start to slow that down a little bit. And it can also help decrease burnout, which is really important for all of our social workers, teachers, and people working out there, and even parents. It's hard being on all the time. So trying to find ways to decrease that and find a little bit more joy in your day-to-day. So like we talked about, yoga can be for you, and it can mean so many different things. And we'll talk about this today, but it can be really good for the self-care aspect, again, for stress and anxiety reduction. Really helpful to ground you when things are really chaotic, when things are unknown. And that's very often in our day-to-day life, things like that. We don't know what's going to happen next. So finding ways to ground ourselves, the health benefits that we just spoke of, and many, many others. And it can also keep you flexible in your body and your mind. So able to approach each situation and really give it your best and be really present with your family and with your kids and the people you're working with. So we talked about this a little bit in my past webinar, but just to review a little bit, what is this word self-care, and like, how do we have time for it, and what does it look like? And so it's really important to remember that self-care is really different for each of us. So what I find is self-care for me might not be what you find is self-care for you. So we really need to find different ways that can help us and provide this care and support for ourselves. And it's so important to find time for self-care, even though we live such busy, busy lives. We need to find even small amounts of time for some of these things, like yoga, like relaxation, like mindfulness and stretching. It can be journaling. It can be taking a walk, having a sip of tea. It can even be, if you love cooking, finding self-care in these moments that allow us to really do something for ourselves, that allows us to build ourselves up so that we're more able and capable and even excited to help others around us once we help ourselves a little bit more. And then again, just to review, what is mindfulness? This word comes up a lot. And again, it's one of these things that can mean a lot of different things. And, it can mean if we're doing simple movements or breathing exercises, simple yoga postures, we can be more mindful in the moment. We can be more mindful just in our everyday life. We become more focused on the task ahead of us. And you have in your handouts some mindful art activities, which we'll talk about a little later as well, which are things that you can, start to focus really more on the moment. Even what we did at the beginning of the session today, doing these, check-ins with yourself, that allows us to be more mindful, allows us to be fully present and paying attention to what we're doing. And that really can help us, again, all those same benefits. It can help decrease, fatigue if you're not thinking about 100 things at once. If you can focus a little bit more on what's happening in front of you, can really start to see the benefits. And it might be hard, at times, sitting and being more mindful with ourselves, because we become, more aware of these physical sensations or mental thoughts and emotional fluctuations. And it might be hard to sometimes even sit with those. And especially for our young kids that maybe don't have the verbal ability yet, to be someone there to support them, to support them through these hard times, to allow them to be more mindful, to give them that space to sit with those hard and difficult feelings, and allowing them to know that you're there to support them, you'll be there, and that they can take their time. And just as you would give that support to, the kiddos that you're working with or your children at home, you want to have that same support for yourself. You want to be more mindful with yourself, really think about what's happening, take the time to process it, to go through it. And all those things can be seen and done and worked through, and again, so many different ways. And hopefully we have a little time to talk about, different ways that you find mindfulness. If you have any thoughts on that, you can always leave that in the comments and we'll talk about that later. And just, getting back into that mindfulness can be so different. And today we're kind of focusing a little bit on movement and yoga or breathing exercises, but it can be so many different things, and to keep that in mind. So just again, ways we can create mindful movements. We just talked about this a little bit, but you can try a seated breathing activity, which you have in your handouts, and we can try one of these later on as well. Mindful art activities, again, you have in your handouts, but we'll talk a little bit about this in the next slide. And these movement activities, we can be more mindful when we start to link our movement with our breathing and just begin to focus a little bit. And really thinking also about this grounding idea. When we were seated at the beginning of this session, or even now when you're seated listening to me watching, ground yourself down. Notice how the seat feels beneath you. And that allows you to really focus in on this mindful moment, this moment right now in time. What is supporting you? Can you allow your shoulders to relax a little bit more? Can you allow yourself to smile a little bit in this moment? Because we can be a little less rigid. We can, mindfulness doesn't have to be so intense that I'm sitting there with my eyes closed and I can't do anything. We can be playful with it. And that's really important to remember with our families and with our children, to be a little playful, to kind of let everyone enjoy the moment. So these mindful art activities are so important. These are just two little examples, and I believe you have one in your handout as well. A mandala or some type of often geometric design, but it can also be something visually appealing to you. We have all these coloring books out there now, and a lot of kids and adults are finding so many benefits from them. So you can find time to maybe sit with like markers or colored pencils or anything you have, and just focus on that and enjoy the coloring, choosing the colors, making it look beautiful, or maybe it doesn't look beautiful. You can allow that to be a fun process for yourself, and being more mindful because you're focusing on the art you're doing. You can't be, washing the dishes while you're coloring something in. it just won't work. So you have to be a little bit more present with what you're working on. The benefits of mindful art activities, again, we discussed this a little bit, but they allow you to focus on the task in front of you. It allows you to take time for your personal growth and exploration, which is so important, especially as parents and, family members and caretakers. We have so many people pulling us in so many directions. So allowing yourself to have a little bit of personal growth and exploration can be so beneficial. It can teach us new skills and ways of approaching situations, which can be really great if you're working with kids or your children at home, and kind of allowing them to explore this and allowing them to, decide which colors they use or which markers or which colored pencils, so they get to enjoy that experience. And they're also learning a new skill. So it's that same confidence building. It's, mastery of skills allows you and your children or anyone at any age in life to, feel confident when you do something well, when you achieve something, when you can stand on one leg for even if it's 2 seconds, if you can finish a drawing, really enjoying those wins for yourself. So these activities, they can be productive ways to channel our nervous or negative energy, which is really important, again, especially if we're, on 2 levels, if you're working with your children or kids in a school setting or something like that and offering them support, and if they don't have maybe, the verbal skills or even want to talk about a situation that's happening to them that maybe makes them nervous or is uncomfortable, sometimes having time to draw or to do something that can express yourself or they can express themselves that doesn't rely so heavily on the verbal communication can be really helpful. And you can both kind of touch into what's really going on and be more mindful, find some time for this like self-reflection that they're able to focus on. And as adults, we have a lot of negative energy and nervous energy as well. And it can be a really productive way instead of, chewing your nails off or picking at something, your clothing, you can start to maybe draw a little picture. If you're on the phone and someone's, making you really nervous or frustrating you, you can try to draw a little picture when you do it and refocus that energy and allow yourself to kind of find a different way to interact or experience this nervous or negative energy. And we said this before, but mindful art activities can be really helpful for children who have trouble with focusing. Again, it allows you to really touch in with the moment. Again, you can't really be washing the dishes and drawing something. You can't have, your child wanting to run around, which we'll talk about a little later, if someone has a lot of energy. But if you want them to kind of to come back down and try to like relax maybe before bed or maybe as a good midway point between, schoolwork or something like that, doing something that allows them to kind of focus and really pay attention to what they're working on in front of them. So yoga for you and your kids, again, this is kind of all repeating, but it's really important. The more times we hear it, the different ways we hear it. So with this self-care idea, we always want to remember to put ourselves first. We want to be able to continue to help our kiddos, but we need to help ourselves. And I know that can feel really overwhelming, but it's really important to find time throughout your day to be more mindful, find what works well for you, and can find some positive movements or energy, breathing exercises that can really benefit you no matter your age or ability. And we really want to work to find ways that like everyone in your family can get involved. And that's kind of the idea of like yoga stories or ways to like express yourselves that can become a little bit more fun. So it's not necessarily, it has to be done this way. We can get creative, we can get playful with it. And that's really exciting. So especially, obviously every child and every adult, we learn differently. We, interact with the world around us very differently. And we need to be really aware of that. We need to know our own limits. We don't want to push anyone or, even ourselves to ever hurt ourselves. We want to really be aware of how we're feeling. And that's a really important thing to be, focused on when you're working with your kids and yourselves. But yoga specifically for children with special needs can be really, really helpful. And in the US, especially, there's a lot of yoga therapy that's working with a lot of children with different special needs and different abilities. And so, yoga, again, this slide is about children with special needs and yoga, but it really spans for all children and for all adults. And all these things are also benefits. So yoga helps to develop motor skills, those fine motor skills, of being able to do different stretches or isolate the fingers and things like that. Develop self-awareness. So we're more able to understand where we are in relation to the space around us, as well as how we're feeling compared to people around us and, things that are going on. So it allows us to focus on that a little bit more. It can improve social skills, which is really, really wonderful. Even within the family, playing together increases social skills, laughing, joining together, building something together, things like that are so important. And then if you're having, you have the lucky ability to be in a class right now, improving those social skills also by playing with other people, children's age, or even adults, you learning different social skills as an adult and interacting with someone else in a class. We are always learning, we're always growing, we're always improving ourselves. Our emotional expressions can really start to improve, once we allow ourselves to express ourselves and not focus maybe so much on the verbal expression, but we can start to really understand emotionally how we're feeling and find different ways to express that. So instead of it just being, frustration and anger, we can find different ways to express that and have that be really beneficial. And that, like self-awareness, kind of, it encourage body awareness. So like we know what's going on in the space around us. We won't have time today to do any yoga with like props and stuff or movements, but it can be really great body awareness for you and your kids, even just throwing a ball back and forth, so they again are finding their fine motor skills, they're starting to understand where they relate to the ball and how they throw it back. Using walls can be really helpful. We'll do a chair, and then I think next slide we'll do a little yoga class using the chair, but things like that, to really understand how our body is feeling and everything. And just keeping in mind that children and adults, though, but that can be highly sensitive to sounds, lights, noises, and other stimulation. So yoga can create a calming environment for children to be in, which is really, again, beneficial. With the overly, loud and noisy world that we live in, it's really, really nice to have more time for, children to find calm times and, places that aren't, asking so much of them, that they can just be themselves and respond in the way that feels right for them. And as well for adults, finding time for these movements or these, breathing exercises or grounding exercises creates a calming environment. It starts at home. It starts with you. So finding ways for you to be more calm, more relaxed, will increase, we said our energy levels and all those amazing other benefits. So we're going to do a little yoga class here. So I'm going to stop sharing and hopefully you guys can all see me. So we'll start with finding a nice seat. And hopefully everyone is comfortable at home, sitting up nice and tall. I'm having a little hard time getting okay. So we're sitting up nice and tall here, and I'm connected to my screen, so I'll stay close. But so we can start with just simple movements like we were talking about motor skills. So you can put your hands out and we'll just close our hands and open, close and open. 2 more times, close and open. And 1 more time, close and open. Another really great one for your wrist if you're sitting at the computer all day or things like that is you can push your hands out like you're saying stop, and then let your fingers relax down and push and down. And I hope you're all following along at home and you're getting your kids to join too. Press away and down. And again, really understanding what's best for you. So if you're working with someone or for you, maybe it's harder to spread your hands. Maybe that's your exercise. Finding mobility where you can find mobility is really, really important. We'll do a little neck stretch here. So I'm going to have you look down towards the ground. Keep breathing. And then looking all the way up towards the sky or the ceiling. Nice deep inhales and exhales. And again, looking down towards the ground. Feeling that stretch in the back of the neck. Noticing if there's any pain, so not pushing it, but just noticing that sensation. And then one more time, looking up. And even something super simple like this, you can do in the morning, right when you wake up out of bed. Before you're doing anything else, it doesn't need any equipment. You don't need a lot of space. You can do it while you're waiting in the car. We'll do one more here. So looking over your shoulder. And then over the other shoulder. With the neck, we want to be careful here. So we're not moving super fast. You can move a little faster if that feels good. But we're being sensitive to our neck, which can often be stiff. And one more time over. Okay, coming back to center. So we're going to roll the shoulders. Get some nice big movement in the shoulders here. Couple more times like this. And then we're going to roll them forward, getting a nice curve in the back, getting some movement. Good. And then all together here, we're going to take a nice big inhale, lift your shoulders up. Exhale, let them go. One more time like that. Inhale, lift your shoulders. Exhale, let it go. So we can maybe start to even be mindful there and notice where my shoulders already up here. And what does it feel like to let them relax a little bit? Let gravity take them down. So we'll take our fingertips now right to our shoulders here. I'm going to reach to touch our elbows and then open up. And then reach to touch our elbows and open up. And we're opening up here. We're opening up through the chest, which is an area that we often can feel really tight and a lot of tension. If we're nervous, our breathing can feel really tight in here as well. So we're trying to, round the back, get that little stretch in the upper back, but then really open up. And this is kind of a modified cat-cow that oftentimes people do on the ground. But again, we're just doing them seated today so you can really see the benefits without a lot of effort, without a lot of room and things like that. So open up and then close. One more time, open up and close. Good, let's reach all the way up towards the sky and let's let the fingers come down. Reach all the way up and let your fingers come down. And hopefully our kids can have fun with these ones too and kind of make them playful. Reach up towards the sky and let your fingers come down. And let's reach across the body with one arm. Reach, reach, reach. Good. And then across the body with the other arm. Reach, reach, reach. Very nice. And all the way over one more time. And all the way over. Good. We're not going to get into too much more here because we don't have a lot of time today, but I'll just do a couple more and then we can always, if you have any questions or any ideas for different movements that might feel good for you at home, you can always let me know and we can talk about those later. But just one more here. Reach your arms all the way up and bring them down. And if you're working with kids, you can have them show you their muscles. Reach up and come all the way down. One more, reach up and all the way down. So these are some really great, super simple activities that you can see with our necks, stretching, with our hands, getting our shoulders involved, getting our back, doing twisting and things like that. Reaching up towards the sky, getting strength and elongation through the side body here. Can all be really great. And also, as you can see, can be done seated. So you don't need a lot of space. You don't need to find a whole big room to do this in. There are tons of fun things you can do on the ground, obviously, or on, using walls and things like that. But you can really do a lot just seated. It's really important to remember, you can stamp your feet. You can't see, but I'm lifting my knees up and down right now as if I'm walking. You get some blood flow, but there's lots of ways to kind of enter into it slowly, if you will. And even, people who like I practice yoga all the time, but I love my seated stretches. I think they're so important. It's really, really nice to, get a little neck stretch, especially if you slept wrong or you've been, tense all day or something like that. Keeping the hands mobile, things like this can be really important. And, it doesn't have to look like this, extremely fancy, perfect yoga pose. We're just finding movement. And yoga is really all about linking the movement, the body with the breath. So as long as we continue breathing, which I hope you're all doing, and, you find a little movement, you find a little play, a little, way to get your body active and out there can really have all those same benefits and are really, really important. I'm going to share again for you guys, and we'll just keep moving along here. And what we don't get to, we will get to next week. Just one second. Okay. So that was our simple yoga class. And again, super short, I know, but we're just trying to keep it moving and everything. And just a little review, you saw that was that seated cat-cow. So a cat-cow can be done on your hands and knees on the ground. It can be done seated. It can be done standing. We're again just trying to get a little movement through the upper back and through the chest, finding some more openness and expansion. We also want to, find ways to get, like I said, more movement in the upper back. Our low backs often, a lot of us have, low back pain, and we have a lot more flexibility in our low back. So really trying to get some movement in the upper back with those rounding and those opening up of those cat-cows. It can be really, really great and super, super simple. The neck release, I showed you a couple of those, just gently looking up or looking down, looking to the side. Can be, again, super simple things that you can do right when you first wake up in the morning or right before bed or anytime throughout the day, just to get a little bit more mobility in the neck, find a little bit of ease, keep the joints loose and mobile. We talked about this arm and wrist finger stretch. Again, anything that kind of feels good for you, or if you're working with someone or, you're working with your children and you see maybe that their hands are super tight all the time, maybe even that's just working with opening all the fingers up wide and wiggling them and then closing. Or maybe you're getting into things that are a little bit more intense with full arm circles, reaching the arms out to the side or reaching them up towards the sky. All really, really important. And again, pretty simple to find time to do these things. We're not asking for, a huge space and all these props and to do it in a particular way, or even for a certain amount of time, just letting this be a really great way for you to find a little bit more movement throughout your days and a little bit more relaxation. So we talked about this yoga movement for you and your family. So when can you do this? Doing at-home yoga movement activities can be helpful as a break between activities to get some stretching in. Your kids are sitting doing schoolwork or things like that, or, right before dinner, right before bed, things like that. Before bed with breathing or relaxation activities can be really, really helpful for you and your kids. Maybe as a family, you already are doing some of these. I'd love to hear if anyone at home does, kind of these like breathing activities, whether they're the ones I'm going to share with you or anyone's at home, just maybe focusing on your breath, noticing how you're feeling. These can be really, really helpful. And they can look like so many different things. And again, like this yoga, this movement, this breathing, this mindfulness can really be practiced at any time. The only thing I would say is, if you have a huge meal, you might not want to get on the ground and roll around or do these movements because it might make your stomach hurt a little bit. So just being aware of that. And it can also often feel like kind of hard to start these things for everyone. Nothing to be ashamed of. You can, follow along with, hopefully you followed along with me today, and maybe you were able to see a little bit that it can be kind of more flexible. It can be more playful, a little bit more what feels good for you and your body or for your family. So, letting that be playful and really doing that. You can also find videos, you can find books, you can look at some of the handouts that you received. You can ask friends and family if anyone knows any like good stretches or things like that that could be helpful. Maybe at your kid's school, look around and kind of find some things that I think could be helpful for you to get some movement into your daily life for you and your family. And then, as we'll hopefully talk about later if we have enough time, or we'll definitely talk about next week, this idea of creating our own yoga stories and movements that feel good for you and your kids. So these can be, super creative. It can be things like, expressing your story or telling how you're feeling today by, like, I feel like a cat, and everyone can round their back, or, I feel really big and strong. And what does that look like? How does that sound? How does that feel in your body? Letting that be playful and really like understanding that with your kids and with your students, wherever you're working. So remembering that yoga can look like a lot of different things. It can be simple stretching while sitting in a chair or even the couch, obviously, sitting on the floor. It can be breathing deeply in and out, just even focusing, noticing your breath can be a form of yoga. Grounding your feet down and feeling the floor beneath you, so important. We can do this throughout all the whole day. While we're waiting in line at the grocery store, we can do this. While we're cooking dinner or boiling water for tea, we can do this. We can ground down and feel our feet, similar to what we did at the beginning of the session, where we ground down and we felt what we were sitting on. Was it a hard surface? Was it soft? Does the air feel warm? Just becoming more mindful and aware of how you're feeling in that moment. Yoga can look like sitting up straighter at the dinner table, noticing, if everyone can relax their shoulders a little bit more while we're eating. It can be playing outside with your kids, skipping around outside if you hopefully have a park near you, or even walking down the sidewalk, things like that. Walking up the stairs if you have stairs in your house or your apartment building. Yoga can look like relaxing your mind before going to sleep, which is really, really important. It can be really, your mind can be racing. So finding that time to allow yourself to relax a little bit more. Can be having a dance party at home, with your kids, or, letting them tell you about their new favorite way to dance or move, and letting it be playful and trying that with them so that we can play and laugh and, have fun with our kids. I'd love to hear if you guys have any activities that you're doing at home that, you think might fall into one of these categories. And I'm sure it does, that it is a type of yoga, because as you can see, yoga can be seen in so many different ways and is so important, again, for our relaxation and for our mindfulness. And we can find these things throughout everything we're doing throughout our days. So we're just going to talk a little bit here, and we'll probably get to the yoga stories next week. I know you have them in your handouts, and I hope you join next Wednesday, and we'll talk a lot more about these yoga stories, do a little bit more yoga and a little bit more movement, and talk, review some of these things as well. But so we'll talk a little bit now about just different breathing techniques and different exercises. So deep breathing is one of the best ways to lower the stress in our body. We talked about this. Deep breathing can be extremely beneficial and, helping us change our mood, even can help us remain in control of a situation. If things feel really intense, try to take a deep breath and see what happens. See if it can allow your brain to, calm down a little bit, to relax, and notice how you're feeling. And if you can, continue to focus on your breath, just like we did even in the beginning of the session, where we were focusing a little bit more on our breath, centering ourselves. We'll do a couple more breathing exercises in the next slides as well. So breathing can really help us calm ourselves. It can really be a way to touch in with how we're feeling. It can also be a playful thing, it can be energizing. We want to always keep in mind, though, that we never want to, hold the breath for an extended period of time. We don't want to, create tension. We're trying to create a release and relaxation. So listening to your body, not forcing things. And that can sometimes be hard to know. So just taking it slow, noticing, how something feels and, adding on little by little. So you also have in your handout some of these techniques for breathing exercises, but we'll do a couple here together. So this simple breathing techniques with square breathing we'll start with. Square breathing. So I'm going to actually leave this slide up instead of you seeing me, because it is helpful when you're learning to kind of follow along with the inhales and the little holds and the rests and everything. So again, let's take a nice comfortable seat wherever you are, and we'll just take a couple of gentle breaths to begin with. Inhale and exhale. Inhaling and exhale. So we're sitting nice and tall. Again, noticing if you can relax your shoulders a little bit away from your ears. Noticing if you can relax the muscles of your face, relax any gripping in your hands even, or your feet. So just trying to follow along here. Again, noticing what feels best for you. But we'll take a nice big inhale. And we'll count 2, 3, 4, hold. 2, 3, 4, and exhale. 2, 3, 4. So we're kind of with this slow square breathing here, we're just slowing the breath down. So instead of going and, breathing like that, really fast, which sometimes we do, we're trying to notice a little bit more if we can breathe, and doing the counting here can be helpful. So we're, inhaling for a count of a few and then exhaling. So we'll try it one more time and then we'll move on, because I think we're getting a little short on time. So we'll take a nice big inhale, and as we inhale, we're counting 2, 3, 4, holding there at the top. 2, 3, 4, and big exhale. 2, 3, 4. You can do this a few times. You can do kind of different variations as well if that feels better for you. Just noticing the rise and fall again of your inhale and your exhale. We'll move on to a lion's breath, which can be really fun. So we'll find a comfortable seat and we'll inhale through our nose. Open your eyes and exhale. Open your mouth wide and stick out your tongue and make an ah sound. Ah. And we'll talk about this and get more into it next week and everything, and you'll see me do it and it'll be great fun. But we'll do one more here. It's a really good one to relax our face and our mouth here and kind of get a little playful, make a little sound so your exhale comes out a little bit more. So a nice big inhale. And exhale out the mouth, letting it all go. That's another really fun one, and kind of a little bit more of a playful one, a little bit more movement involved. And you kind of look like a lion maybe, or you can have your kids look like lions. So the benefits of simple breathing techniques is it can give you a deeper sleep. It can allow you to take time to relax. It can really be so beneficial for you and bring you hopefully a lot more peace throughout your day. And as you saw, all these techniques are super simple. We can do them with our children. We can do them with our families. We can do them at work. We can do them by ourselves. Finding time and finding also the ones that work best for you are really, really important. So we talked a little bit, about relaxation and mindful activities for the whole family. We talked a little bit about, obviously we can stretch together, we can create yoga stories together, we can take walks together and, be more mindful and try to notice what we're hearing, what we're seeing, what we're feeling. We can help each other. So we're building social connections. We're building, that sense of togetherness. We're working together, and we're also touching in and noticing, being mindful of how everyone else in our family is feeling, or how everyone else in our class is feeling, or at work. Can play together, really important to, be playful. And we'll talk again about these yoga stories, how we can get more playful and more fluid with our families, and, also find time though, obviously, to relax and, especially before bed, if you find that you're kids' minds are racing or it's hard to calm them down, kind of trying to find some of these ways to relax a little bit. So I hope to hear from you. What are some other activities you can think of? And we want to always remember to support each other and remain present with each other. So we're going to do yoga stories. And I think I'm going to wait for that for next week because we have to stop in, I think, 5 minutes. So we'll get into these next week, but I'm curious if anyone has any questions. I would love to hear if anyone has any thoughts about kind of any of these things we've talked about, or if anyone is, curious if what they're doing at home are any, or if that is considered yoga, or if like they have any specific questions about the breathing exercises. I'd love to hear any questions you guys have now, and I'll come back to me. And if we don't have any questions, I have a couple kind of common questions that I often get asked on these things. So if anyone has any questions, I'll give it a couple more moments. And then I'll read off maybe a couple, I think we have just a couple minutes here, just a few questions that are commonly asked, and I really hope, if nothing else, you can kind of take away from this that yoga and these movement things are, really, really important. And we want to find time to, even if they're small, even if it's very, very little, and, we don't have a lot of time, but just a simple neck stretch, or, a breathing inhale up and exhale down, inhale up and exhale down. Just these kind of really simple, fun activities we can do. And that you can hopefully learn a little bit more that like these benefits of finding time for ourselves, breathing activities, things like that, they can help us reduce stress. They can help increase our, emotional understanding and our ability to flow and roll with the punches. It can really engage our entire family, which is so wonderful to do, that find something that everyone can enjoy. So just a couple of these questions. If no one has any questions, I'll just go through a couple that I have here. So often when I get, it's like, how do I find a yoga stretch that I like? And I think it can be really helpful to focus on a part of the body that, like I said, if you wake up in the morning and your neck feels really tight, maybe that's your yoga stretch for the day. Maybe looking down and up. If your kids, have been at school all day and their hands feel kind of tight because they've been holding their pens and their pencils or on the keyboards and stuff like that, or playing instruments, maybe that's our exercise, stretching our hands. So you want to start kind of with an area that feels good for you and that you can really focus on that. And I just can't, impress upon you enough, parents and families, just that it's really important to take time for yourself in this self-care, because the world is really crazy and we really need to care for ourselves so we can, be there for our families and be there at work and everything, and be these amazing support systems that we know we can be, and be our best selves going forward. So like I said, finding self-care, and that can look like so many different things. And I think I need to stop now, but I hope that I can see you all or hear from you all. If anyone has questions, you can always pass them along, as well as if anyone has any more thoughts, we can catch up next Wednesday for my next webinar about yoga stories. And I hope you all have a wonderful day.